Then we have the three most common micronutrient deficiencies, as opposed to macronutrients, which we just discussed. The first one is iron deficiency, which leads to anemia. Vitamin A deficiency, or VAD, vitamin A deficiency is what it stands for. And then iodine deficiency, which is goiter. Goiter is when you have a growth on your neck. So first off, iron deficiency. Iron is important. Iron is essential for transport of oxygen in the blood. Iron deficiency leads to poor cognitive development of children and contributes to maternal death and causes fatigue. So again, you need iron in order to develop your brain to its full capacity. And I was saying earlier that it's a critical time in particular for children in the first 1,000 days of life. Iron deficiency. 3 to 5 billion people are affected by this disease in the world. So that's a very large percentage, more than half of the world's population easily affected. In particular, pregnant women who have a much higher demand and need for iron, being pregnant, of course. For children, 5 to 14 years and preschool age, and then older adults. Symptoms of iron deficiency would be, as you can see in the eyes, there are major problems with vision. It's hard to see in the picture, but the nails are very thin. There's the white lines, and they're a little crooked. These are all symptoms. And the reason that I'm mentioning all these in particular is not only are they major concerns, micronutrient deficiencies, but they can very easily be addressed for pennies, really. The key for anemia is simply to provide access to fortified cereals. Cereal legume blends, legume meaning beans in the vernacular, I suppose wheat, maize, flour, etc. And then simply providing access to dietary sources of iron and vitamin C. That's the key. Iron supplements can also be provided for pregnant and lactating women, infants in particular. Again, if you're monitoring the birth weight and the status, as I was mentioning, with being wasted and stunted, then you're monitoring the growth of infants, and this can be caught, these deficiencies, and they can be addressed in this way. And it also helps tremendously when you can control infections like malaria and worms. When worms who are parasites in the body, living in the stomach and the intestines, and basically you're feeding them by providing food oftentimes. And this is a major problem for many of these children, that they don't respond to the treatment oftentimes because they're infested with worms, and you've got to deworm them before you can start and control these infections. Vitamin A deficiency, or VAD, is probably the leading cause of preventable blindness among preschool children. And VAD weakens the immune system and increases clinical severity and mortality from measles and diarrhea. It's what I was saying earlier, that again, often this is a hard concept to grasp at times, that people are not necessarily dying from hunger, meaning lack of food, but they're dying from diseases like malaria, like measles and diarrhea, that they would otherwise get over easily, and they would get better without it becoming worse to the point where it would be a mortal issue. And this is so much the tragedy that we often see in these situations. VAD is another one. I'm often fond of telling a story that in Nepal, where I was posted for a number of years, there was this folk tale that up in the mountains, where a very large segment of the population live, high up in the Himalayas, that women would be in the evening going at like at dusk or after sunset, walking on these narrow mountain trails from one village to the next, and they would stumble. And in the folk tale that the men in particular would tell, well, she must be pregnant. So that was a sign that if women stumbled at night on the mountain trail, they were pregnant. And I remember when my staff were telling me that, I said, well, it's interesting how that's developed. We said, well, what that is, of course, is vitamin A deficiency, because your eyes are most affected. And you can be chronically malnourished, as we discussed earlier, living in a food insecure environment. You're managing, but for these young girls, and many of them are girls or young women, as soon as they become pregnant, their need for these micronutrients is much, much greater. And their body will then be affected. And in this case, night blindness. So night blindness in Nepal is an indication that you may well be pregnant. WHO estimates that 21% of all children suffer from VAD, vitamin A deficiency, in Africa and Asia. The symptoms, again, of the problems in the eyes, and if this is not treated, it will eventually lead to blindness. And with vitamin A, supplements can be provided to children 6 months to 5 years, and women after birth, after they have delivered. And access to vitamin A, as I've mentioned, through oranges, red fruits, and vegetables. And supporting breastfeeding, which is a key issue for us in many countries where we work. And then access to fortified commodities, fortified oil that is fortified with micronutrients, cereals, and legume blends, as mentioned. The single most preventable cause of mental retardation in the third world, in brain damage, is iodine deficiency. Iodine deficiency can lead to serious brain damage over time. And 1 billion people, again, 1/6 of the world's population, to have some degree of goiter, again, the growth in the neck, in Africa, the Middle East, Asia, but also in parts of Europe. Picture again, just to sort of visualize how this looks. This woman here has a growth on her neck, typical symptom of iodine deficiency called a goiter. One of the key solutions to iodine deficiency, serious as it is, costs pennies, and it's simply iodization of salt. And all the salt that you have sitting on at home in the salt shaker is already iodized. I mean, everywhere in first world countries, in many countries around the world, salt is iodized simply by law. It's extremely cheap to do and easy and not difficult. But again, if it's not mandated, if there aren't laws to force that this happens, many times you'll find many parts of the world simply don't have fortified salt. That iodization is critical. Or people also then who live in climates near the sea have access to iodine-rich foods such as sea fish and seaweed, etc. So, in conclusion, we have the three nested concepts, again, of food insecurity, very important. Overall, when you're looking at a segment of the population or a particular community, a family, is try to understand what their situation is in terms of food access, food insecurity, or food security, either one. And hunger within the concept of food insecurity, and then undernutrition and the role of undernutrition related to hunger and food insecurity. So, looking at a community again, they may have no current hunger, but by definition, being food insecure, they are vulnerable to it. So, for example, if they have a quick onset of an emergency, let's say, like the Haiti earthquake again, like a tsunami, some urgent major disaster, if those in that community will be most vulnerable because they're living in a food insecure environment. Undernutrition is, as I've said, it can take many forms, including PEM and the micronutrient deficiencies.